Behind me is a 1978 Pontiac Trans Am in one of the most expensive collector cars you could possibly have in your garage. Should you want to get one of these less expensive, you certainly can. While the traditional black and gold is by far the most expensive way to have this color combination, you could still get it in a hard top without those T-tops right there, and you could pick up a nice one like that for the $15,000 to $25,000 range. But if you want it in the legendary black and gold, along with those T-tops, you are looking at a $100,000 car. There are really two ways to get this car where it comes in that six-figure range. Let me detail. One would be the original SE Y82 Special in all original format. Those cars are selling at auction consistently at $100,000, $120,000. Heck, I've even seen one go for up to $400,000 at auction. These prices absolutely blew my mind, and I spent years trying to find just a steal, one I could get and really afford, but in the end, I ended up just buying a T-top Trans Am and modifying it into a Resto mod myself. And those are true collector's cars. This is a car that you're gonna want to baby and take care of and bring it out to the car shows and watch everyone drool. The other way to get these cars up in that six-figure range is to do a Resto mod. Here, it's not quite as important that it's original Y82. What becomes important is the legendary T-tops, the black and gold paint with the pinstriping, having the right front end. This cat eye front end was only ran in 77 and 78 and is by far the most valuable front end you can have on this car. In 79, they switched it to a 4 individual light front end and it became slightly less valuable. So if you've got all those features on the car, and it is black and gold, whether it's a Y82 or not isn't important as long as it is a Resto mod, and that's in good condition, disc brakes, typically an LS style swapped engine, upgraded vintage air, basically making it into a modern car. This car will now perform much more similar to a 2020 or newer sports car out on the road. Things like front coilover suspension, and the list just goes on. But if you've got this car in an LS Resto mod styled car or the original Y82 Special, you've got yourself a six-figure car. But let's talk about why. First and foremost is going to be the history of this car. It was featured in movies. You could find James Garner driving a Trans Am in the Rockford Files, but most importantly, Smokey and the Bandit. And Smokey and the Bandit was the second highest grossing film in 1977, which basically means everybody on the planet saw it. It fell in only second place to Star Wars. But the coolest thing about the Smokey and the Bandit movie is its biggest star. This is debatable. Maybe Burt Reynolds was the biggest star or Sally Fields, but I'm gonna say its biggest star was this Trans Am. And in 1977, when that movie came out, you could go to the store and buy this very Trans Am straight out of the movies for yourself. This really was the last iconic muscle car in American history. While the Ford Mustang and the Dodge Challenger had turned into grocery getters, GM held on to the era of the muscle car and came out with this girl right here. Of course, it had some major challenges because back then, this car was only putting out 220 horsepower, and that's thanks to our government's emission squeeze. All the cars were losing their muscle, but GM wanted to keep it alive. So they offset that low horsepower by making the car look fast. A big hood scoop up on the front engine. Now, of course, this is 100% fake. It is only for looks. It did shake because it was attached to the top of the engine, but it did not provide any air. A big screaming chicken on the hood, along with 10 other screaming chickens located throughout the car, and the rear end graced with a true race car styled spoiler. Classic honeycomb wheels, spoilers looking somewhat like ground effects over the front and rear wheel, air ducting in the front quarter panel, pinstriping head to toe on every curve and crease. While this car was not fast from the factory, it sure enough looked fast. And with the T-tops being the craze of that decade, it fit the part through and through. And this is probably why Resto mods are so popular. Right now, this car behind me has an LS engine in it and nearly doubles the horsepower it came with factory. These cars truly are the last survivors of the muscle car era. And while a ton of them were made and sold, not a ton survived. These quickly became one of the most popular cars to chop up and turn into race cars and drag strip cars and every other kind of performance car you could think of. Quickly, all these cars were just chopped up and there just weren't a lot of them left on the market. Whether it's an aging population's memories from the past, one of the most iconic movies ever made, the fact that it was the last true muscle car of the American muscle car era, or just how scarce these cars are, how difficult they are to find, and close to original condition. Whichever of those reasons it is, you're gonna find these cars are every bit as expensive as other famous movie cars like the 68 Mustang Fastback or the 1970s Challenger. The 1978 Pontiac Trans Am sits not only among the most iconic movie cars of American history, but also the most valuable. The thing about the way these cars look is it doesn't matter if you remember this car from your childhood or from the movie, or if you're just a modern day young kid who's never seen a car that looks anything like this. And it just looks fast and frankly even cool. I can't even tell you how many kids come up to me that can't have a clue about the Smokey and the Bandit movie. They're 7, 8, 10 years old and they're giving me the thumbs up. Cool car, man. They have no idea what this car is. They just know it looks different than every other car in the market. I've been building this car with custom Holley parts, bare brakes, Detroit speed coilover suspension, vintage air, and so many other parts. And while this is definitely considered a Resto modded car right here behind me, this is a driver. I drive this car coast to coast and across country. In fact, my next trip, I'm taking it down Route 66 the entire way from Chicago all the way down to Santa Monica. We're gonna do a video series along the whole way. It's called The Shakedown Show. And we're inviting people in other classic cars or classic trucks, anything 30 years or older, to join us, whether they join us for one day or for the trip in its entirety. Go check it out, The Shakedown Show. We are going to be taking her and a bunch of other people's cars cross country, experiencing one of the most iconic roads in America, Route 66, start to finish. It should be a great time.